Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com and follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this is made possible by our sponsors, OWC. For more information, go to owcdigital.com so you can see how they can help you with your filmmaking needs. This week, I'm joined by editor Joaquin Elizondo, whose work includes Narcos Mexico, Dark Winds, and much, much more. Welcome to the show.
Gordon, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I guess let me ask, how did you get involved with Narcos?
Oh, that's a pretty interesting story. I was actually, I had moved to LA from New York, and I was trying to make my way into scripted TV. I had always been an editor in unscripted. And so when I landed in LA, that was my mission, right? And so just did everything I could to try to break in. I started working in indie films as an assistant. Mm-hmm. So, I had never been an assistant as I was always editing and unscripted. So I started doing that. And then little by little, I started doing like fill-in gigs on scripted TV shows. So like a week here, a week there, this and that. Then I got onto this documentary. It was The Day I Met El Chapo. It was about, El Chapo meeting Kate del Castillo and Sean Penn. It was a documentary. It actually was a post-production coordinator on that gig. And I got bumped up to assistant editor. Mm-hmm. And then whatever, the gig, it wrapped. And then a couple months later, I get this random email. And it was, this post-producer was asking for the researcher's name from that documentary because they needed a researcher for their gig, for their project. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll pass over the name. And I realized, I saw the person's name, the post-producer's name, and I, of course, is when I IMDb and looked them up. And he was on Narcos, the original series, the one in Colombia. So I when I replied, I said, hey, yeah, here's the researcher's name. I said at the bottom, P.S., hey, well, if you need an assistant, I'm available, right? And he says, well, do you speak Spanish? Are you in the union? I'm like, yes. I'm like, well, come on, meet me on Monday. We got this new show coming up. I'm like, great. So I go over to the office and I walk in and yeah, there's like pictures of Diego Luna and Michael Pena. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And we're doing Narcos Mexico. And so, we need assistance. And I'm like, well, I'm here. And sure enough, yeah, I get the gig. And so that's how I landed on Narcos Mexico. It was just, like I said, I got a random email. I guess he found my name on IMDb Pro and my contact info, and that's how it started. And I was with them for 3 seasons, and eventually, I did get bumped up to editor on that show.
So that bump from assistant to editor can be very stressful for your first big show. So how did you handle that stress and make sure that you stayed focused?
Well, you know what? To me, it was the fact that I was just working on a scripted TV show, and not only just a scripted TV show, one of my favorite shows, because I was a big fan of the Colombia Narcos. So to me, I didn't feel that stressed. To me, I was just happy to be doing what I was doing. And I just let things happen. I knew that I was going to enjoy my time being an assistant. There was no pressure for me to be an editor because I needed to learn what this kind of, workflows and just simply what it was to work in scripted TV. And so I was never kind of in a rush, and and that's the thing. I think that's why things just happen naturally. I got paired up with one of my mentors, a great friend, Monty DeGraff, ACE. And, he's known kind of as a mentor around the post-production industry. And so I just got paired up with him. That's how it happened, because when he came on to Narcos Mexico, his assistant didn't speak Spanish, and so he couldn't bring her along. So that's how we got paired up. And he was, he saw that I just, I guess that I could edit because I had done a lot of like short films and other projects, and just saw me that I think that I really cared about the show and about being proactive, right, and helping him getting things done. And so that first season of me being an assistant in Narcos Mexico, I was able to co-edit an episode with Monty DeGraff. And then the next season, I got to co-edit again with Garrett Donnelly, one of my mentors and very good friend, and then got bumped up by season 3.
So now, is there a scene or a moment in that series that you really loved that was really hard to get to work?
Yeah, I think there was a scene in episode 7 of season 1 of Narcos Mexico. It was a very violent, very gory scene. There's a lot of those in the Narcos franchise. But I'm a big fan of sound and music and using that in our cuts. And there's one scene where Rafa's in with his goons in the restaurant. They encounter what they think are DEA agents, and the way I use the music there, I think because I coded an episode with Monty, and my musical choice was this kind of cumbia, very happy kind of cumbia song. Like I said, when there's a very violent scene happening, so it's a very contrast to what is actually playing out in the scene. That's, I think, just Narcos in general is known for doing that. And so when the initial thought was to be like, hey, let's use some like dark score, this, it's like, no, let's use kind of like this happy, like I said, cumbia song, in contrast to what is like, a very gory scene. And so that was that was just very fun to do. And also just to collaborate on that with Monty. We did it together, and kind of, taking it in different, each kind of having different takes on it, and then kind of coming together to agree on something. It was really fun.
Now you made the jump over to Dark Winds. So how did you make that jump, or how did you get involved with Dark Winds?
Well, yeah, after Narcos Mexico, I went over and I worked. It's a good question because it goes back to networking, right? I'm building relationships. After Narcos Mexico, I went to work on the Hot Zone, Anthrax, and then went over to Dark Winds. And so now basically all the shows that I've been cutting on have been shows that I was an assistant on. And it's all basically developing a relationship with post-producers and showrunners. On the Hot Zone Anthrax, they came back for a second season. And, when I heard about that, I had been editing on Narcos, and immediately I reached out to the showrunners and said, hey, you know what? I'm editing now, right? And I heard there's season 2 coming up. I want to throw my name in the hat. And, they like what I did as an assistant. And I think really more so anything is just more about personality, honestly. So they're seeing someone that they can work with, and also obviously having a group of people around you to support you and vouch for you. And that was the case on the Hot Zone Anthrax and then Dark Winds. It's just people, me building relationships with people, post-producers and showrunners, and also having editors, support me.
Now you mentioned about, you talked about your mentors, you talked about networking, what have you, but you also started Hollywood Editing Mentor. What is that? How did that get started? What's involved with that?
Yeah, Hollywood Editing Mentor, which can be found at hollywoodeditingmentor.com. I started it right after the pandemic hit last year. It started off as me, obviously, first saying, I want to do something productive. I can't just sit here, because I wasn't working. No one was working. And so I'm like, well, I don't know when I'll go back to work. I want to do something productive and create something for the post-production community, because, my journey to scripted was very tough. And I couldn't have done it without the help of a lot of people, and certainly people I'd call my mentors and communities, right? Like Blue Collar Post Collective, for example. It's all these things that I figured out during my, the time that I was trying to break into scripted TV. And so I decided to create a program based on my experience. And a lot of what I discovered was simply, it's about building relationships and networking, but also, a lot of kind of self-help, progress, a lot of what I encounter with people is kind of this idea of self-doubt, right? That kind of holds us back. Sometimes, for example, in regards to networking, like being, shy, right? Those, these things that we need to work on. I certainly was at some point, and I found ways to practice that, how to get over me being shy. Right. And so it's all these things, kind of more of the soft skills that I realized that really propelled me in my career. Not to say that obviously the hard skills, like say all the technical skills, that's very important. Certainly you got to know what you're doing, right? You got to be good at your job. But I think we oftentimes neglect these softer skills. And I've seen it firsthand, and I still do, where people do not get opportunities because they don't possess these soft skills. There might be great, say, assistants, amazing assistants, but, these softer skills that kind of hold them back from advancing in their career, and even editors. I've seen it. I still see it. So I created this mentorship program and kind of make myself available to really just talk to people. I knew that I always wanted to have someone I simply wanted to ask questions. There's a lot of things about this industry that I didn't know. And so it's me kind of pulling back the curtain on the post-production industry in Hollywood and making myself available. I mean, I do a lot of like these live Q&A and sessions and virtual networking sessions on my private Facebook page. I do, I also create content. I have a YouTube channel, a lot of tutorials and advice videos. And if people want to work, dive deeper into these topics with me, I do offer private one-on-one mentoring sessions. So it's been great. It's still growing. I have also a podcast where I interview not only very, award-winning editors, but also just post-production professionals in general. So it's creating this resource for people that want to work in post-production and editing, not just scripted or film, but just, commercials, reality, whatever. It's a community where people can come and network, ask questions, feel safe and honestly, just have fun, hang out also with like-minded people.
Now, you talked about some of the soft skills that you mentioned that people are missing soft skills. What were some of the things that you've seen that people could work on for those watching this?
Certainly, this is something I heard from an A-list editor. I gotta say, a piece of advice that I got was simply don't be the quiet one. And I think it's part of us as editors, right? Obviously there's a reason why we like to be in our rooms, but it's very important to get out there and put yourself out there. Put yourself out, put your interests out there, your goals. If you want to edit, you need to tell people that you want to edit, and make it known, right? But also let people know who you are, right? I mean, what movies are you into? What music? What do you like to do on the weekends? Just speak. I mean, just need to talk. Be curious. I always tell people, be curious, ask questions. And that's the way you're going to connect with people. You're going to get to know each other. And so I think it's more so when you say networking, I really mean building relationships, and it's really getting to know someone, and it starts with us, putting ourselves out there. And so that's something that's, I had to work on it too. I got to say, at some point, I just really had to kind of work on that. And I was a little shy. And like I said, I did things to practice that, to get over it. So I think that's very important.
What is something that you wish you had known before you got to where you are currently? If you could go back and tell yourself that, what would be something that you learned or you didn't know that you would want to teach people about?
Well, I think it is that. I think it is about building relationships because, for a while, like I said, I was editing for many years. I mean, like for 15 years, I was editing unscripted. I got to say, I got really comfortable because I was just getting work, right? And it's the thing that I learned is that no matter what, like even if you're still getting work, that networking aspect of it never stops. I mean, even now, for example, look, I'm in a different spot now. I mean, I got, I'm got something booked till next year, right? But I can't stop networking, and I can't stop building relationships. And that's something that in those first kind of 15 years, honestly, I didn't do. And it hit me when I got to LA because I think in New York, like I said, I was just getting a lot of work and I was comfortable. LA is a whole different beast. And when I got to LA, I mean, I just didn't know anyone. No one, I could not get work for a whole year. I swear, a year, I could not find any work. And so that's when it hit me. It's like, I need to really start, networking and building relationships, something that I had not done, I think in my, prior to that, in my, 15 years. So that's really important. I mean, really this industry is based on, built on relationships. So that's something that, I've learned, and I really try to push through this program.
Now, you talked about editing reality. Is there something you learned from that experience that you still use to this day in fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I even in interviews now, for editing gigs and scripted, I mean, that gets brought up. I mean, that experience does get brought up, especially documentaries. And it's this ability, to handle so much footage, right? And to create a story when, obviously in documentaries, you're kind of just getting footage and you're kind of creating the story as you go, right? It changes all the time. And so I think I realized that, people definitely look at that. And just like one of my good friends said, there's no wasted work. I mean, I started off in local news in San Diego, I've done commercials, promos, documentaries, talk shows, sports. And I've learned something in all those gigs, all that experience now, I have it with, all these skills I've built throughout those years. I still apply them to scripted TV and film.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, it's, yeah, I think we have a lot to learn. I mean, everything is what we encounter, we work on. There's something we can learn from that.
Now, is there like, like I think about documentaries in particular and the amount of footage, but part of it being that you have to build the story. Like in a lot of cases, not all of them, but in a lot of cases, you'll be finding the story in post. Is there a situation when you transition to fiction where, a scene didn't work and you guys had to figure out how to rework the story or rework the scene to make it work?
Oh, certainly. Yes. I mean, that all the time. And I think that, yeah, certainly that has, my experience in documentary has helped me out with that. And I got to say, this show that I'm working on now, I mean, that was brought up in my interview by the showrunner. These documentary projects that, I probably no one saw, I mean, like, they were kind of more like local projects, but they're still brought up in the interview, and they're still, no matter what, if they're not shown, say, at festivals or on networks or whatever, it's still an experience. You learn something from it. Right. And so, yeah, certainly all the time. I mean, like, I think my experience in documentary still helps me to find a story, even though I do have a script to follow, but I'm always kind of looking for, okay, what else can we do with this material? And if we encounter problems or issues as I'm doing, say, my editor's cut,
yeah,
I'm still sticking to the script, but I already have in the back of my mind, other ideas. So when I start working with the director or the showrunner, I can say, sure, this is what was shot, this is what was scripted, but here, check this out. I created this other version, right? And I think people, certainly directors and producers, appreciate that. When you have other versions, you're kind of ahead of the game, right? With regards to the story and finding solutions even before you get to working with them.
So now that you're in fiction, is there like a particular type of script that you like to look for, or what do you look for in your scripts?
I love drama for sure. And I've been doing that certainly in the last couple of shows. It's certainly like action pieces. I've been doing that as well and certainly enjoy it. I definitely would like to try comedy. I got to say, I definitely would like to try comedy or horror. I think that would be a nice challenge for sure. But yeah, I like drama. I got to say, I like those good dramatic moments for sure. And, I like also, I wanted originally to be a cinematographer. So I really like, something stylized, I like, I really, something that just kind of stands out with regards to look. I really lean towards, but yeah, I think in the end, I'd like those dramatic elements, good performances, but I definitely want to, diversify my resume. I don't want to stick to one thing, and that's why, for example, would like to move on, try at least a comedy or, like I said, horror.
Okay. So like, is there a particular style of horror that you'd want to jump into, or is it like slasher 80s or gore Saw movies, or what kind of horror?
I mean, look, I mean, like Halloween, the original Halloween is one of my favorite films. Yeah. So, something like that would certainly.
You sure it's not, you're sure it's not the third one or whatever it was with the.
Well, yeah. I don't want to get into the whole Halloween franchise. I have a lot to say about it. So I'll just say, the original was my favorite. But yeah, something like that, would be cool. Or, like me, like a dark comedy, something like that is something that I would like to explore for sure.
Okay. Now, I have one last question that I ask everyone I interview. We've been stuck in this pandemic for a little over a year. You started Hollywood Editing Mentor, but have you, because we're stuck in this, a lot of people are turning to, streaming services for entertainment to get them through it. Is there something you discovered over the last year, a show or a movie that you think people should check out?
Well, I mean, I was a big fan of The Queen's Gambit, Queen's Gambit. I loved, I think, every aspect of it. I mean, from the editing, the cinematography, the score, obviously. I mean, just the story. I mean, everything about it, I truly loved. So that is something that I tell people, yeah, you definitely got to check it out. I recently watched Made on Netflix. I loved it. I really enjoyed that as well. I just started watching Insecure. I've been watching that since it started, and so definitely excited about the last season. I got into obviously Tiger King, just like everyone else, of course. And Luis Miguel, the series. My girlfriend turned me into that. Luis Miguel is a huge artist, huge in the Latin community, just probably around the world. I got into that, and that is, I think, starting this week for the third season. So, yeah, no, definitely got into a lot of stuff, and I did go see the latest Halloween in the theater. And we will not go into that.
Now, I want to thank you for joining us this week. And for those watching, make sure to check out filmmakeru.com and hollywoodeditingmentor.com. You can get all our courses at filmmakeru.com. And of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_you. Again, I want to thank you, Joaquin, for joining me. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.